The sun was sinking behind the red cliffs of Arizona Territory, bleeding its last light across the rugged land. Dust hovered in the air like a ghost, caught between day and night. On the edge of the canyon stood Ethan Cole, a rancher with more silence than words, more scars than stories. The war had taken his family. The years had taken his smile, but not his sense of justice. That still burned like a coal deep inside him. He had ridden into town that day only to sell a few hides and fetch some salt, but fate had other plans. As he tied his horse near the trading post, the air cracked with the sound of a whip. A man's voice shouted something cruel, followed by a muffled cry that made Ethan freeze. He turned. Behind the store, a small crowd had gathered, settlers, soldiers, and townsfolk, watching as a young native girl, no older than 16, was tied to a post. Her wrists were bound, her dark hair tangled and streaked with dust. A uniformed officer held the whip high, his face red with drink and arrogance. "She stole from the store," someone yelled. "Teach her a lesson," shouted another. The officer grinned, his hand tightening on the handle. Ethan's blood boiled. He'd seen men like that before, men who thought power made them gods. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Stop that," he said, his voice low but carrying. The crowd turned, whispering. The officer looked at him, amused. "And who the hell are you?" Ethan walked closer, his boots crushing the dirt. "Name's Cole, and I don't much care who she stole from. You lay that whip on her again and you'll answer to me." The officer laughed. "You defending a thief, cowboy? She's an Apache. They're all thieves." "Maybe," Ethan said, his hand resting on the butt of his revolver. "But that don't give you the right to play God." The man sneered. "You gonna draw on me over an Indian girl?" Ethan didn't blink. "If I have to." For a long, tense moment, no one moved. The officer's pride battled his fear, and finally he spat at the ground. "Fine, take her if she means that much to you." He tossed the whip down and stormed off. The crowd grumbled, disappointed that their entertainment had ended. One by one they drifted away. Ethan walked to the girl and cut the ropes loose. She stumbled forward, weak and trembling. He caught her before she hit the ground. Her eyes met his, dark, deep, full of fury and shame. "You all right?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. She pulled away and stood on shaky legs, her pride refusing to let her collapse. Ethan nodded toward his horse. "Come on, you can't stay here." She hesitated, then followed him out of town. They rode in silence for miles, the desert wind their only companion. When they reached his cabin, a small wooden structure tucked between cottonwoods by the creek, Ethan dismounted and offered her a hand. She ignored it, sliding off the horse by herself. Inside, he gave her a blanket, some bread, and water. She ate slowly, glancing at him like a wary animal. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't speak. He sighed. "All right. You don't have to talk. You can sleep here tonight. I'll take you back to your people in the morning." Her gaze softened just a little. She whispered something, a single word, before lying down on the cot. Ethan didn't understand it, but the tone carried gratitude. He sat by the fire that night, listening to the wind outside. He told himself he'd done the right thing, that it was just a matter of decency. But something about the girl's eyes stayed with him, the way they burned. Not with fear, but with a quiet strength. At dawn, he stepped outside to chop wood. The sun painted gold across the land, and for the first time in months, he felt the world breathe again. When he went back inside, the cot was empty. She was gone. Ethan stood there for a long time, looking at the door. He thought maybe that was for the best. The world wasn't kind to either of them. But that night, as the stars gathered above the canyon, there was a knock on the door. He opened it, and there she stood. Clean now, her long hair braided, her eyes steady. She held something wrapped in cloth, a carved wooden charm shaped like an eagle. "For you," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, unsure of the English words. Ethan stared, surprised. "You came back." She nodded. "You saved me. I come to see you." And in that moment, under the starlight, something shifted in the air. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was alive, trembling with meaning neither could name yet. Ethan felt it deep in his chest, that strange, forgotten ache of connection. "Then come in," he said quietly. "You can stay a while." She smiled faintly and stepped inside, her shadow stretching long across his wooden floor. The night closed around them, warm and still, and though neither knew it, this was the beginning of something neither the desert nor time could bury. Morning came soft and golden over the desert. Ethan Cole hadn't slept much. The face of the girl, her eyes filled with defiance and pain, kept haunting him. He'd thought she'd gone back to her people, and maybe that was best. But when he stepped outside, he froze. She was there, standing by the creek, hair loose, sunlight dancing over her shoulders. She held something small wrapped in cloth. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You saved me," she said, her voice careful, the words foreign on her tongue. "So I came to see you." Ethan stood still, surprised. "You didn't have to come back." "I wanted to," she said simply. Then she unwrapped the cloth and held out a wooden carving. An eagle, smooth and delicate, hand-carved. "My father made this before the soldiers came. He said eagle means freedom. I give it to you." Ethan took it gently. "That's a fine gift, miss. But you keep it. You'll need it." She shook her head. "No, you give me freedom. Now I give to you." He looked at her, really looked. There was strength in her eyes, not the helplessness he'd seen yesterday. Something in her gaze cut right through the walls he'd built inside himself. "You got a name?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Tala." He smiled faintly. "Means wolf, doesn't it?" Her eyes widened. "You know my people's tongue?" "Just a word or two," he said, voice soft. "A friend taught me long ago." She tilted her head, curious. "You had friend Apache?" "Yeah," he said, staring into the distance. "Saved my life once. I couldn't save his." Tala stepped closer, her expression gentle. "Now you save me." Ethan looked down at the carving in his hand. "Maybe I was meant to," he said quietly. The wind whispered between them, carrying the scent of sage and dust. For a long time, neither spoke. It was enough, that silence, that understanding. Two lives that never should have crossed, now stood tied by something deeper than words. "I can stay?" she asked softly. Ethan hesitated. "It's dangerous. Soldiers might come looking." "I'm not afraid," she said. Afraid was yesterday. He looked at her, at the fire in her eyes, and nodded slowly. "Then you can stay, for now." Tala smiled, her lips trembling just a little. "Then I make food. You rest." Ethan chuckled quietly. "All right." That evening they sat by the fire. The world outside was cruel, uncertain, but in that small cabin by the creek, something began to heal. Ethan held the eagle carving tight and glanced at Tala across the flames. She looked back and said softly, "You give me freedom. Maybe now I give you peace." Ethan didn't reply. He didn't need to. The light in her eyes said enough. Outside, the stars burned over the desert, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cole didn't feel alone.